This is Keep Up. I'm your host, Cynthia Dill. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio, and I'm very pleased to have joining me today a candidate for the United States Congress for 1st Congressional District, Ron Russell. Welcome to the show, Mr. Russell.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Great to be here.
Well, this isn't your first rodeo. You ran against Chellie Pingree for the 1st Congressional District seat here in Maine in 2024 and had an admirable showing for, I think, a newcomer, but still a big hill to climb. In 2026, obviously, all eyes are on Venezuela, and you bring a unique perspective to, I think, foreign policy and military strategy. And so why don't we start the show with how, given your experience in 30 plus years in the United States Army, very special services, what's your opinion about the administration's Operation Absolute Resolve, and how would your experience better represent Maine's 1st Congressional District in Washington on this issue?
Well, I could not be prouder of the forces that conducted this operation. I'm very familiar with all of them. In fact, I commanded some of those forces. So the fact that they executed it the way that they did came as no surprise. And, we have a saying in the military, we talk about Murphy, and when Murphy gets involved, things go badly. And Murphy didn't show his ugly head in this operation. We had a few injuries, I understand, but not serious. So I was tickled to death with that. And the most important thing is that President Mr. Maduro and his wife were secured and safely extracted from Venezuela. I know there's a lot of discussion about whether we violated the War Powers Act or that. I'm not going to opine on that during this session here because there's a whole lot far smarter people than I that have looked at that issue and decided that we were well within our right to be able to execute. And I've heard the opposite as well from some Republicans, but generally the other side of the aisle. And again, I don't want to opine on that today. I'm going to let the smarter people than me figure that out. But
Chellie Pingree was quoted in the Bangor Daily News as describing the Venezuelan military operation as breathtaking abuse of power, which is definitely a far cry from what you've just described. I found the details of the operation just fascinating. I was reviewing some of them today in preparation of our conversation, and I'm not a military expert, but it sounds just like a stunning show of force with like 150 warplanes coming from, I think I read 20 different bases and all kinds of very, I don't know, sophisticated sounding equipment. And the timing was just unbelievable to me. And the fact that there aren't any casualties, I mean, setting aside the legality of the issue, as you said, it's for another day by other people, but there can be no doubt a message was sent internationally about the skills and the fortitude of the United States military. I mean, do you think that's part of the strategy here of the Trump administration to send a strong message to the rest of the world?
I'm sure of it. The second and third order effects of this operation will make everything that the United States does in the future easier. So when the Secretary of State now goes to talk to a country which is not necessarily as friendly as some of our allies, I think the demonstration of power that was just witnessed will have a significant impact on those conversations that will make them easier, if you will. And on our enemies as well. I hope that they are paying attention. And, we talk about speak softly but carry a big stick as a matter of deterrence. I think we just had a perfect example of what it is we mean when we talk about that. So I would hope that enemies and allies around the world were paying attention and saw what was well within our capability. And I can tell you the force that does this has done it thousands of times in exercises and in real world operations. So it comes as no surprise to me that they were as successful as they were. So
Now, how could you reassure voters in the first district that you will use your experience in the military to not only support, the troops in legitimate military operations, but also hold the administration accountable as a member of Congress, because there is supposed to be this checks and balances on power. I mean, like for instance, would you take a stand when it came to Greenland with President Trump and voice objection to the United States engaging in, other kind of aggressive military moves, or is Venezuela, in your mind, a unique situation?
I wouldn't say Venezuela is a unique situation. I think every instance where military force is being contemplated, we have the Powers Act, and that's one of the things that the naysayers have been bringing up with respect to this operation here in Venezuela. And the administration is couching it in a different vein. So, we were not going to war there from the administration's perspective. We were executing a law enforcement operation by capturing someone who is under indictment in the United States. Uh, any time the use of U.S. forces is being contemplated, I would certainly be advising and providing my input as to whether I thought that that was the right thing to do or not. Again, in this particular situation, the information that is available to the decision makers that they have reviewed over and over again, because I know I have experienced it in the past for the operations that I have been involved in, they have come to the conclusion that this did not violate the War Powers Act, that notification came after the event because of operational security for the mission, and that that was more than adequate. Um, Congress, of course, is the only one that can declare war. Congress has abdicated, if you will, some of its responsibilities, and that's the reason we have all of the executive orders that we have. So I would, as a member of Congress, try to reinstate the power of Congress and make sure that these types of things uh, would not happen if it was in fact a War Powers Act violation, which I don't think that it was, but make sure that the War Powers Act is not violated. And Congress needs to reassert its authority to to be able to fulfill the duties and responsibilities that are outlined in the Constitution.
Now,
That's the
in
reason.
it. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that's the reason we've had so many executive actions over the last several terms, is because Congress has not taken the bull by the horns and executed its responsibilities to the extent that I believe that it should.
Susan Collins, as you know, is a moderate Republican, or at least in a lot of people describe her as a moderate Republican, and she's, a rare bird in the United States Senate, and certainly the only Republican senator in New England. Where now the Republican Party generally is thought of sort of being split, and I know there are divides in the Democrats too. I'm just using the Republicans now because you are a Republican running.
Mhm.
There's kind of a thought that there's the MAGA Republicans, and then there's the more moderate wing of the Republican Party, represented by people like Susan Collins. If you were to describe yourself in broad strokes, is there a position on the political spectrum that you feel comfortable identifying with?
If I were to pick any, I would say moderate. I think I'm like Susan Collins. I have said many times that the job description of a representative to Congress is to represent the people that elected them to represent them. And, Maine's demographics in congressional district number one, as an example, there are more Democrats than there are Republicans. And when I talk to my Republican brethren, I tell them, from my perspective, the good news is the policies of the Republican Party that I would be supporting are good for all of the constituents of congressional district number one. And the more I talk to the the constituents in this district, getting that point across. I still think that there are enough Mainers who will listen to good common sense, and that's what I think the Republican policies are.
Well, speaking of good common sense and a particular Republican policy that I agree with, let's pivot and talk to protecting girls' sports because that is uh, going to be, I believe, assuming this requisite number of signatures is collected, a question on the ballot at the same time that you'll be on the ballot, assuming you win the
Yep,
primary. I'm not aware right now. Do you have any challenges in the Republican primary?
I do not.
Okay, so you will be the Republican candidate, I'm sure.
As it stands right now, yes.
And so on the ballot in November will also be a statewide referendum on protecting girls' sports in Maine, and that's a state issue, but it certainly takes on national flavor because Chellie Pingree, for instance, weighed in on bills recently that involve this gender ideology issue, and has signed on to briefs supporting gender identity over female sex-based rights, much to my chagrin. So, what is your position on protecting Maine girls' sports in Maine and the transgender ideology uh, controversy that is on the minds of a lot of people in Maine?
I really haven't put a lot of thought into that particular subject because I don't think that I need to. It's pretty self-explanatory, and we mentioned common sense already. There's a difference between boys and girls biologically. Okay, they are different sexes, and the fact that we have allowed them to participate, boys to participate in girls' sports, I think just violates common sense. We know that boys are stronger than girls. When I was growing up, my mother would tell me boys don't hit girls. Well, that was for a reason because boys are stronger than girls. And other than it wasn't the polite thing to do as well. But the fact that we have boys playing on the same fields as girls it causes me some concern about injuries to the girls. That's really a minor aspect of it for me. The bigger aspect of it is from the Maine human rights law is that boys are allowed in women's locker rooms and in women's bathrooms. Now, I can remember I played sports in junior high and high school, and I can remember the anxiety I felt as a boy in a boys' locker room. And I know I've talked to women, and they felt the same anxiety as girls in a girls' locker room. I cannot imagine having someone of the opposite sex in my locker room. And and I would say it's even worse if you were a female to have a male in your locker room. So I strongly support keeping men out of women's sports, boys out
Well,
of
and
girls' sports.
it's an issue, and for you to know this, I think it's important that you know that there's a lot of women like myself who have supported people like Chellie Pingree for every time she's been on the ballot. However, because of this issue, because of Democrats denying the reality of the female sex, denying protections on the basis of sex, allowing these so-called trans women into women's prisons and shelters and locker rooms and bathrooms. It's it's an existential threat to the female sex in my view, and so I'm withholding my vote from Chellie Pingree, and I'm withholding my vote from any person on the ballot who does not recognize the biological reality and the sex-based rights of women. And so it's a real issue, I think, for Republicans to to run on because there's a lot of women like myself who feel so strongly about it that, I'm not yet convinced who I'm going to vote for in every election, but I know for a fact I'm not voting for anyone who doesn't believe that my female sex is real. So I hope you stick to your
This,
guns when
yeah,
it comes to.
this is one of those issues that really makes me scratch my head. The fact that we are even discussing it, just it violates all common sense there from my perspective. So I'm a strong supporter of our young ladies who are participating in sports and of them doing that by themselves without any male interference.
There's been a lot of talk in the paper and the news also about fraud within governments, and there's been a big light, shown on Minnesota, the welfare fraud that's happening there. There's been attention directed to our state in Lewiston and other areas, and most of that is related to Medicaid and healthcare fraud. I know, though, from my experience in some of my legal work, that there's also a lot of fraud in the defense contract industry. So, and I know that you have some experience in that. So I'd like you to take a few minutes to tell us a little bit about your background and your military experience and your defense contracting experience. But then also, are you committed to not only trying to, ferret out fraud committed by, Somalis in Lewiston, but also hold your industry to task if it comes to wasting taxpayer money?
So I spent 30 years in the United States Army as an Airborne Ranger Green Beret. And after I retired, I started a small business with three friends, and we did defense contracting. We had worked for a larger defense contractor, and when I say larger, it was a 180-man company. And that 180-man company had a lot of employees from the unit that I commanded. So when I transitioned into that company, it was an easy transition. The office that I worked in, there were 14 of us, and they all came from this unit that I commanded. So it was a very, very simple transition. Well, that company was purchased by a large defense contracting company. So we went from 180 people to 11,180 people. And the difference was the bureaucracy in between the senior leadership and the leadership at my level. And if you were fond of bureaucracy, this would be one that you would be envious of. So four of us broke away and started our own small business, and we grew that to a large business. Now, when I look at contracting, we had, let's, I'll just throw a number out there. If I had 100 contracts, only one of those contracts was a sole source contract or a no bid contract. And that's how hard it is to justify that at the federal level. The fact that we have 5,500 no bid contracts in the state of Maine screams fraud, waste, and abuse to me. And I think that deserves a whole lot of looking into. Holding defense contractors' feet to the fire is really easy to do. We have systems in place to do that, to ensure the government gets what it's uh, paid for, and to make sure that it does not overpay. So, as an example, the government has a system to determine how much it costs me to run my company, and then they allow me to add 10% or less profit onto to those costs. And in a competitive bidding cycle, that profit is decreased so that you give the government the best value for its dollar. In a no bid process, that competition is eliminated, and therein lies the problem. And it really stinks when you find out that these no bid contracts are given to friends and relatives of the folks who are overseeing the contract, or in some way they'll be getting a kickback. And I think 5,500 no bid contracts is there's a whole lot of room for fraud, waste, and abuse investigation there.
Now, your tagline for the campaign this year is "The right place for the right man." And
That
I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about what you mean by that.
I'll explain that one. So my father was the county commissioner for Aroostook County when I was in high school, and he started that really after my mom passed away when I was a sophomore. So he was the county commissioner there until he passed away my freshman year at West Point, 2 weeks after Christmas vacation. But I have a poster at our family camp in on Hopkins Pond, just east of Bangor, that has his tagline, which was "The right place for the right man." And I thought that makes sense. Coincidentally, or incidentally, my father was a Democrat, and you hear a lot of people talk about Kennedy Democrats. I don't know what my father would be today, but I don't think that he would be as strong a supporter of the Democratic Party as it has evolved over the years. In fact, some might say he might be a Republican here now. So that's where that tagline came from, and I thought it was appropriate and has some tradition associated with it as well.
Well, Ron Russell, what do you see as your biggest challenge out on the campaign trail?
My biggest challenge is talking to as many Democrats and independents as I possibly can. We have a structure where I speak to Republicans on a regular basis, but you know the demographics in congressional district number one. I can't win if I won 100% of the Republicans. I need to have some unaffiliated and some Democrat voters voting for me. And I'm hoping that when they hear how I feel about the specific issues, that they will vote for me, because it's not, we have to get past the point where we vote because of the letter you have after your name. We really have to pick the best person for the job, the best man for the job in my case, because I am a man, and that's why I say that, not to be pejorative against women, because uh,
No, I
I would
understand.
not.
You think you're the best qualified candidate, and you're also a
Exactly, I'm the
man.
best qualified candidate. So from a meritocracy perspective, I think I'm the best pick. And I hope that all the voters in congressional district number one see it the exact same way.
What do you see as, and I'll let you go in just a minute, what do you see as the shortcoming of Congresswoman Pingree? What, in your view, is she not doing for the first congressional district that you would do differently?
I think the biggest thing is, as I've said before, the job is representative, and that's representing all of the people in congressional district number one. So I'll just take an issue that we've talked about here already: men or boys and girls sports. Polling in Maine indicates that that's a 69-31 issue. Okay, I think it's actually more like an 80-20 or a 90-10 issue in Maine. But she, when given the chance at the federal level to vote to institutionalize the fact that boys should not be participating in girls' sports, she chose not to do that. That does not represent the people of Maine. Another example, she voted not to deport illegal aliens who have been convicted of felonious assault on minors, sexual assault on minors. I I'd like to think that the majority of Mainers would find that obnoxious and unacceptable. So those are a couple of examples where I don't think she supports the people that elected her to represent them.
Are you wrapping up a big fundraising quarter? What are your numbers like?
Um, Fundraising is down, but the last quarter did end on the 31st of December. But I get a lot of texts from fellow Republicans about it's the end of this reporting period. I'm not smart enough or pay attention enough to how important that is. My campaign manager has educated me greatly on that fact. So it's just a matter of getting on the phone and getting out and talking to folks. And again, I think when they listen to me, when they hear me talk, that they will support me with their wallets as well as their votes when it comes time to do that.
Well,
So
Ron Russell, if people want to get a hold of you or learn more about your campaign or have questions, what's the best way to contact you or the campaign?
ronrussellforcongress.com is the best way. And Cynthia, you can go to that website as well, and there's a QR code on there where you can contribute to the Ron Russell for Congress campaign.
All right. Oh, well, thank you for that invitation. I'll certainly consider it. Well, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Uh, I have another tagline here. When you cross the bridge at Kittery and come into Maine, you see the sign that shows you the border. And when I was growing up, my father would roll down the window of the windows of the car, and he'd say, "Breathe in that fresh Maine air." And then a mile down the road, we would see the sign that said Maine, the way life should be. I could not wait to move back to Maine because from my memory, it was the way life should be. But what I've experienced here in the last couple of years is that's not the case. The um, the the economy is not serving the citizens of Maine well. We are losing a lot of our young folks. They are heading out of the state. Taxes are an incredible burden. And when you look at a place like New Hampshire, right across the border, same terrain, basically the same size, no tax state. So how can they maintain their roads and do the things that government should be doing for their constituents? And we can't do that in Maine without raising or burdening our folks in an incredible manner. Maine is not a business-friendly state, and it needs to be. And we have so much to offer. And so I'm hoping to get Maine back to the way life should be. That's what I intend to do from Washington, D.C.
Well, Ron Russell, thank you very much for your time. I wish you the best of luck in your campaign and hope to have you on the show again soon.
Super. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.